I will introduce our speaker for today. So today we have Rebecca Harris. She is an innovator and entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience providing transformative leadership and delivering best practice driven solutions. Has expertise in starting and growing companies and has provided professional services for both nonprofit and for-profit organizations, specializing in the area of intrapreneurship. She graduated from Northwestern University as a communication studies major, received her MBA from Fox School of Business at Temple University, and is a member of the Leadership Pittsburgh 27 class. Rebecca is currently the president and founder of RUH Consulting LLC, a firm providing consulting services to develop and to develop innovative, strategic, and targeted solutions for organizations. She is very committed to supporting initiatives, partnerships, and policies which result in genuine and long-lasting economic inclusions, as exemplified by her tenure as the executive director for the Center of Women's Entrepreneurship at Chatham University, where she served from April 2009 to September 2019. So I'm going to hand it off to Rebecca.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? And do I sound fine? And I'm not like warbled and all those things? Yeah. If you can't, would you like let me know? Oh, I love seeing your faces. Come in live if you can. So even if you're like in your pajamas, I don't care. I'm a mom. It's okay. We would love to see you in person. Thank you so much. It's really a delight to be here, and I love what you do, and Allison has connected me with you all a lot, and it's really an honor because I think that the university and what you're doing there and the opportunities that you have are unique and remarkable. So I hope to just continue to be part of what your ecosystem and make you think a little. So let's see. Oh no, backwards. There we go. Okay, so this is who I am. This is a lot of my background. You'll see more of this if you want to look at it later. But I've invented a lot of things. I got a patent on a net that you can swim in so you wouldn't be stung by jellyfish when you're swimming. I got that when we lived in the Chesapeake Bay region in Maryland. I developed a company that started making no cholesterol brownies and cookies because my dad had really high cholesterol, and that was in the 80s. It's hard to believe that because I'm only 29, but you know how that goes. Those of us who are a little older. Um, and then I I started a $1 million company on my kitchen table with $750, and it was a parent publication. My daughter was just born, and I knew nothing about parenting. Like I had all these degrees and everything else. So I started a publishing company, and with 1991, and by 1998, it was a $1 million company. And I had a partner who did the design, and I did all of the marketing and sales, and we had over 20 employees, full and part time. And at the time that we got to the $1 million mark, the accountant came in and told me, "You guys just made $1 million." And I said to her, "Do you think I can make payroll?" So when some of our students, when I worked at Chatham for 10 years, I stepped down last year at the Center for Women's Entrepreneurship, said, "Well, why are you working if you were a millionaire?" And I said, "Well, first of all, I wasn't a millionaire. And let's talk about gross and net." But the most important thing about all the products and the services that I had a consultant company was that when I started that company, it was a product that people needed. There was no real internet at that point. It was just starting. It wasn't just something they wanted. And that's going to be something that's going to be universal for all of you as you're thinking about your careers and where you're going, is that as we're looking at so many products and services, and I generalize those to everything that you're doing, you really want to look at things that people need, not that they want. Like I need to have dark chocolate every day. Absolutely. But what do people need versus what they want? So let's just go right ahead. I want to talk a lot today about entrepreneurial thinking, especially in light of what's happening. And um, it's so important now, the need for entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking, especially as we're navigating COVID. This is the most turbulent time of my lifetime. We're dealing with a recession and climate change, and look what's happening on the West Coast, and the list goes on and on. And so, in living in this extreme time, so many of our basic economic and physical well-being in our community is really at risk. I see the divide between the haves and the have-nots and basic services changing radically. And I think as we are looking at moving forward, and you all are looking at what your next act is going to be and what you're going to do and how you're going to have an impact, this concept of acting and thinking entrepreneurially, regardless of where you are academically, your current career status, it's really critical. And the exciting thing is that it'll require, ingenuity and the ability to pivot and embrace new opportunities, but it can come with an unlimited upside, and it can provide challenges, and it's so exciting in so many ways. And so you all, while you're at the beginning of something that's just so it's so scary, and it's so, I mean, it's outside of everything we've ever thought about. This to me is an opportunity of a lifetime that you all have. So to make a difference, to save lives, to really have an impact. So I really want to help you with that. So let's see what we can do. All right. Entrepreneurial thinking isn't something that people necessarily inherit. I think I was born with it. Like, if I saw a problem when I was young, I had to solve it. Like, that was how I thought. But it can be developed, and you can develop it. And so we're going to start today. So what I'd like to do is ask all of you to unmute and really to participate. If you want to type in the chat, and Allison and Alexander can really help us. But pre-COVID-19, and I'm talking about like January and February of this year, what I want to know is, what were you all seeing? What were you reading? What were the trends? What was changing? What did you see was going on? Because I want to know what you were aware of and what you were thinking, because that really is a determination of like what you were on top of at that time. And then we'll talk a little bit more. So, thoughts, people want to unmute. This is interactive, so you get to talk, or you can write, or you can do anything, but I would really welcome input.
I think pre-COVID-19, like my family was taking it pretty seriously, but it didn't seem like the administration or like higher ups were taking it as a serious threat,
Ah,
from like
interesting.
ventilators to masks, to different like things that they need, like hospitals need.
Right,
So it was kind of like concerning, like well, we know that this could be a big problem.
right,
How are we gonna like be on top of
right,
this?
right. Where were you in January and February? Had you come back to school? Had you stayed here? Were you with your family? Like, where were you?
So I'm a first year,
Mhm.
but I also at the time I lived in Florida and now I'm in Oregon. So I also like
Ah,
all my stuff was in Florida and I was visiting Oregon. And so then like we knew that we couldn't really travel because like some of my family members are high risk. So we just like
right.
we also like left basically like all my clothes in my car in Florida, and it was kind of stressful for like 4 months because we didn't know what we were gonna do.
Yeah, that's really stressful. Is everybody safe?
Yeah,
Good,
everyone's doing great now.
good, good. And you're in Oregon now? Is that where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Portland, but we have
Oh,
the fires now, so there's another.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like, are your windows closed? Are you do you
Yeah,
have,
I'd say my windows, like I have like my windows like behind me and it's like gray. It's been gray for like the past 3 days, and
unbelievable.
you can't go
Unbelievable.
out without a mask because then it just
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
sit well.
awful. Well, we have a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for participating. It's really, what you said was really important. Who else wants to add in? Where were you in January and February of this year before COVID really hit, or maybe even December?
Um,
Hi.
I might keep my video off just because of connection issues. But also, I might just weigh in. I'm in South Dakota at the moment, which is pretty far removed from California. But today we saw like orangey gray skies for some reason. It looks very apocalyptic. So the wildfires
Yeah.
are quite crazy. But anyway, for January, February, I was at CMU kind of just getting along with my studies like everyone else. And then my friends and I had the intuition to go on our spring break trip, which was Amsterdam, right before of our business school, as well as just the Carnegie Mellon community at large, sent out an email advising everyone to stay put domestically. And so we kind of went there to Holland, and we were supposed to go back to the UK, which almost immediately went under, as everyone probably remembers. So we rewired through Ireland, and we thought, we'll be super safe about it. Europe is going south, so we'll go to New York and we'll just spend a couple of days there, which is also not very prudent because New York was just
the epicenter.
Found out. So I think I was in the worst possible locations in the most sequentially bad order as well. So that's kind of how I spent it. And so yeah, definitely a big learning experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when did you start wearing a mask?
Good question. I would say as soon as they started, I kind of got a lot of my feedback through Twitter and this thing called Hacker. Once I heard people saying, make sure you get your hands on these 3M N94 filtration masks before they sell out, we're like, oh, they're meant, or if you might as well get on this just in case things get bad. So we had them pretty early. I don't know if we were equipping them as fast, but we definitely were in the know.
Excellent. No, that's awesome. Okay. Who else? It's really good. I'm glad you're safe. Anyone else want to join us?
We have someone in the chat who said that they're in Pittsburgh.
Oh, you were in Pittsburgh. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me tell you where I was and what I was doing, and then it's going to lead us to a little bit more about what I have posted here, and then we're going to get some more ideas from you guys. So here's where I was. At the beginning of January, I had been reading, and I'm a big reader and I scan. And so if you're not scanning for trends and ideas and reading everything you possibly can from multiple sources, I think that's one thing you have to start right now and continue it for the rest of your life. I'm an old, a paper person. So from the New York Times to the Atlantic to the New Yorker to then all the electronic. I think it's really critical to read in-depth stories as well as short form stories. So at the end of December, I started reading about this guy named Dr. Lee, and he was in China, and he died after he had identified this outbreak of 9 cases of this disease. And I was like, why was I sort of watching this closely? Because my son, who's a jazz musician, had plans to go with his band. He graduated last year from Temple University with a classical performance major and jazz undergrad, back to China to a town called Hangzhou, which is 8 hours driving from Wuhan. And he was planning to go back for 4 months. He'd been there 2 years ago with 3 other people, and he had set up the whole trip, and they play in a nightclub, and they play 6 nights a week. And this is a jazz gig. And so I started sort of hearing this, and I thought, well, I wonder what this is. Like, is this okay or not? Well, so the first couple of weeks of January go past. I'm reading more. I'm reading everything I can about what's happening. And all of a sudden I hear Dr. Fauci start talking, and I started to get worried. And I said to Sam, I don't think this sounds good. Like, there's little pieces here and there. So I heard Dr. Fauci on NPR, which is another one of my sources. I listen to the local WESA station, but again, NPR is a really good source of news and information, and certainly so many podcasts these days. So I decided I was going to email Dr. Fauci. I mean, why not? The worst that could happen is he doesn't talk to me, right? He doesn't email me back. But I just thought he had been so remarkable that I think that he is really the person that I want to talk to. So I got on the phone and I said to him, Dr. Fauci, I got on an email. I said, Dr. Fauci, thank you so much for everything you've done. I've heard you on NPR. I think what you're doing is amazing. And can I ask you a question, please? My son is supposed to go to China in the middle of February, and here's where he's going. This is what he's doing. And do you think he's going to be able to go? I really appreciate it. Thanks again, Rebecca Harris. Well, I wasn't hopeful. Well, what do you know? That night, about 11:30, I get an email back from Dr. Fauci, who, for those of you who know, has become one of the biggest White House advisors to COVID. And he said, "Thank you very much, Rebecca, for writing me. I really appreciate it. It's a big deal. Here's what we're doing. We're going to be evacuating all the State Department personnel in Wuhan tomorrow. This is at the end of January. And we have a big disaster on our hands. If it were me, I would not send my son to China. Warm regards, Tony." He signed it Tony. It was like so great. I was like, we're on a first name basis. Now, of course, we weren't really on a first name basis, but so I thought to myself, okay, this is not good. So I called my son that night. I said, "Sammy, there's just no way." And he's like, "Ma, you're just overreacting, da 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 da," because that's what kids do. For those of you who have kids. So the next morning, I wrote him back. I said, "Dr. Fauci, thank you so much for your response. My question to you is, should I take the pneumonia vaccine? Because I hear that people are getting pneumonia-like symptoms from this. It looks like they're getting pneumonia." And he said to me, "That's a very good question, Rebecca, but no, because this is presenting itself not as pneumonia. This is a different virus." Now, we're going to pause for a second because think of what I just learned. It wasn't pneumonia. They knew what the virus was. They knew how bad the outbreak was. They knew that it was bad enough that they were pulling people from China. Now, if he wasn't telling me this stuff, that if it was classified, like I wouldn't have heard it. So all that made me realize is that we either weren't hearing it from the top, we weren't hearing it from the administration. It was much worse than we thought. And who knows what other countries were hearing. I was directly affected initially just because of my son, which made me think this is a huge problem. Subsequently, in the middle of February, my son did not go. It got canceled. The nightclub owner canceled it. End of February. I thought to myself, okay, what's going to need to happen if this is really getting as big and as bad as we think it is? All right, everybody, what companies would you have invested in at that time, at the end of February, if you knew what was happening with the virus and how bad it was getting, and you didn't know everything was going to shut down the way it had, but you had the inkling of what was going on? All right. Put it in the chat or let me know, what kind of companies, what kind of products, what would you invest in at that point? We're at the end of February, we're pre-March 13th, which is when the US sort of shut everything down. The airplanes were shut. I actually know because I flew back from out of the country on March 12th. I had actually gone down to Aruba for a week. Believe it or not, we got on the plane on March 5th. I came back on March 12th. The country had changed. So what had changed? All right, we got some answers here. What would you invest in? What? Energy, medical, I love it. Delivery, Zoom, tech stocks, yes, and yes. Hardware, totally. Oscar, I can't read what you wrote. Maybe it's just how it's coming up on my computer, but I'm not sure. CPG, what is that? Tell me what that is. I don't know what that is. What is CPG? Do I just not know what that is? I might not know what that is. Can you tell me what that is? Are you Kashubu? Consumer goods. Thank you. Like food and shampoo. Excellent. Right. Okay. We have a lot of things that you all have suggested. Oscar, can you rewrite what you wrote? Because maybe it was just me, but I just can't see it on my computer. It's like little dots or something. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the first one I just wrote like ETFs for energy and medical.
Yep.
The second one I was just concurring with somebody who wrote text.
That's me. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Okay,
No.
So now here's what I want from you guys. How many of you actually invested in anything? How many of you went out and decided to develop a product or service or invest in anything? How many of you did that? Like, give me a thumbs up, give me anything. Show me. Anybody? Okay, I did. Oscar did. Anybody else? Oscar, what did you do?
Well, I kind of wanted to avoid the whole Robinhood surge for a long time, but I kind of had to jump on it in March. And there's a couple things. I started with these Japanese banks like Itochi and stuff because they held a lot of proprietary stocks and like tech stocks and stuff. So I thought that would be the best in case certain stocks didn't perform well. So they'd be like a secondary investment. And then I moved on to like Tesla and some other stuff because apparently a lot of people were already predicting the S&P would be really strong and not mimic reality. As for medical, I tried to consider pharmaceutical companies or like ones that would invest in vaccine development, such as AstraZeneca. But as soon as I partnered with the University of Oxford and did some more nonprofit work, I could kind of guess that it wouldn't really reflect any gains, so I didn't take the risk.
Okay, good. Farida, you raised your hand too. What did you do?
I was more on the technical side because the NSF had released. I do a lot of stuff with like SBIR and like that kind of funding. So the NSF released like emergency funding for COVID related like technology and things like that. So some of the things that I actually partnered with my dad. I worked with my dad on this. Before COVID-19, he was working on intubation in the military field, but it could be done for COVID-19 because it would be needed for a wider scale. So we worked on that. And then my brother and he also started building ventilators because at the time it was MIT released like a AutoCAD for it. So there was like also like external resources. So I focused more on like the technical side because I don't really know that much on the business.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, when I say invest is like a universal word. It means where are you putting your brain power and your resources to solving this problem? That's what I'm looking for. Does anybody else have any other input that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just want to say something. Hey, my name is Saleh. So, hi. Yeah, so one thing that I think I wished I could have invested in March was in hardware. And this is something that's, it just came, I mean, it's very recently that came into my radar. There are many people focused on software as service, e-commerce, like fintech, these type of things that they believe they are winners of the COVID. But then if you look at what happens with AMD and NVIDIA, and also these like Apple, for example, these stocks, I believe they have a huge edge these days, and also as compared to software, I didn't care much about hardware, like electronics hardware, because I believe it's hard to do it. People can sit in their homes and they can do software, but on the other hand, their hardware would be more scarce these days. So people who can do these, and also the foundries that they can do these would be very, very essential, I believe.
Right. These are all really good thoughts, you guys. So here's what I did. At the end of February, I bought Zoom stock because I thought to myself, okay, if we're going to have this, people are going to be isolated. And what are the latest platforms? I'm not saying that Zoom is the best, but it seems like Zoom universally was being used. I had used it before. I didn't see anything else that seemed to be as applicable. I know Microsoft has Teams, but you have to have Microsoft product. So I invested in Zoom. I also invested in one of the medical companies that was making or starting to make a vaccine. Okay, so those were the two things. And again, I don't have the same technology background that many of you had, but what I was looking at trends and I was trying to be ahead of the game. All right, so that's when I'm thinking about entrepreneurial thinking and how you have to think about how you can make a difference, where you fit in, what the next move is. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. All right, so let's go on. So now I want to talk about what are the biggest COVID-19 challenges we are now currently facing. And I'm talking about now, like maybe this year, next year, like the next couple of years. I think that there are 3 top ones. So I'd love for you guys to put into the chat, what do you think the list of the top 3 most serious challenges are? And hey, Allison, maybe you can read them out, and I'm gonna look at a couple other things too. So top 3 biggest challenges. Allison is gonna read them out to us.
All right, we have travel across countries.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Contact tracing supply chain. Getting back to in-person events safely.
Keep going. I need more. I need more.
That's all I have so far.
Okay, come on, guys. And I want 3 buckets. Like I want 3 big ones. Some of these could fit into other buckets. So keep going.
People getting lonely,
Mm-hmm.
collaborating in person.
Okay. Okay. I love all of these ideas. What else?
PPE/medical equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Sports events other than the professional level.
Right.
Access to medical doctors.
Yep. You guys are thinking right. You're doing the right thing. Okay, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Safely traveling in public transports.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Unemployment.
Yes, you betcha. How many people are unemployed now? 30 million. How many jobs? 30 million. Okay, keep going.
Rise in procreation.
Mm-hmm.
Improve remote collaboration to feel closer to in-person.
Yep. Oh, I love that idea. Uh-huh.
That's it so far.
Okay, so keep thinking. If you want to add more, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you what I think, at least where I was going with my buckets. My buckets were controlling the disease. So when I think about controlling the disease, to me, and I'm looking at big buckets, okay, that's everything from PPE to the vaccine to how do you get this vaccine to all these people and convince the people who are anti-vaxxers to take the vaccine? How do you set up hospitals if and when things get really, really bad, which like this winter, I think it's going to be really, really bad. How do you create enough masks that are actually ventilator masks? Like we need masks that are like KN95s or N95s. The other masks are all great, but they're not as good as those. So if you haven't done your mask research, I recommend that. So when I say controlling the disease, I'm looking at all facets of that and all the products and services that are going to be involved with that. And while I believe truly that things like platforms, you're going to need the right kind of platforms to control this disease, because you're right, Zoom is good, but it's not as good as being live. And I think there are platforms that can be improved on. So when you think of controlling the disease or disease mitigation or however you want to think about that, there's so many sub pieces of this. The second piece I think we can't ignore is climate change at this point. And some people call it global warming. Some people don't believe in it at all. But I think as evidenced by the number of storms that we've already had come through in terms of the United States and our hurricanes that have come, and when you look at other countries, and then you look at the fires and you look at what is happening in terms of drastic changes in temperature, I think if we don't begin to really address that issue, that it's going to have a dramatic impact on how people live, and especially live through this disease mitigation. And so how can you have people like where you are, Frida? Like, I mean, can you breathe up there? Like, you can hardly breathe. Like, who has invented the best type of indoor air cleaner? And I hear that it's almost impossible to buy air cleaners now. They're almost out, right? You know?
Yeah, we have an air purifier. We had it from before because my mom has like really bad allergies. But yeah, and usually like it wasn't even hot this summer. That's like why this whole like fire thing is crazy, because we've had like hotter and drier summers. But yet now it's like out of control.
It's out of control. Right. Exactly. So, and how can you fight these kind of fires? And should there be better types of firefighting agents that haven't been invented? I'm sure there are. I don't know what they are, but there has to be, without the loss of these lives and homes. The third thing I really put down was food, housing insecurity. And so that really ties into the lack of jobs and unemployment and everything that goes along with that. When I read like the number of pounds of milk that the farmers had to destroy because they couldn't sell it, when I see these people who are in lines at food banks, when I understand how housing now is going to be a huge problem, all the things that go along with basic living, that's food and housing. I mean, that's really basic living, and the insecurity. So what do we need to do? What do we need to invent? What services and products do we need to come up with? How can we mitigate this like really fast? I remember at Carnegie Mellon, Allison, maybe you can help me. There was in one of the maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Robotny. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that company briefly? Do you remember that company?
Yeah, so they have recently changed their name to Fifth Season, but they do vertical farming indoors. So they're producing,
Right.
fruits and vegetables indoors vertically with machine learning. So,
Yeah. So think about that. Like, there you go. Because we can't be transporting this stuff across the country. And if all of a sudden half of California is on fire, God forbid, where are we going to get the fruits and vegetables that we've been eating and driving from California, which is ridiculous. Like, think about that. So I do agree that the platform economies are going to be more and more important. How many more people has Amazon hired recently? It's unbelievable, but people who are going to worry about being safe this winter are going to need to mitigate their exposure. And how are they going to do that? With delivery, if they can and they can afford it. So what does delivery look like? So a lot of you guys got a bunch of the right answers when you were putting things into the chat, because those are all the things. So I truly believe in a lot of ways there's no such thing as a really new idea, like unless it's like a light bulb. Okay, I'll take the light bulb or I'll take the web. Like, those are new inventions, but can you improve on something that exists? Like, give me a better Zoom, please. And so those are the kind of things that I would encourage you all to really think about in terms of what is your essence? What are you going to look at? What are you going to work on? What are you going to do? I think that you can do everything. You're young and you have so many possibilities, but you can't do everything at the same time. So I really recommend that you do things like focus on one thing at a time and then get to the next thing. Oscar, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'm just a little bit curious about whether it's the ideation or the development of ideas throughout the COVID process. I mean, how do you mangle with what are really tangible barriers to entry, as well as certain industries that are just very high regulation, to the point that if one doesn't have industry experience, they can't really get their foot in the water and make a tangible difference, or at least recruit a team to get started. And the reason I ask is, like, for example, if you're asking for a better Zoom, there's just so much back-end development and sophistication of which most people don't have unless they find themselves with a really great environment of similar-minded developers.
Right. That's a really good point. And so here's what I would say to you. I would call that intrapreneurship, not entrepreneurship, but intrapreneurship, which is really acting like and thinking like an entrepreneur with an existing organization. So I would say to you, who are the 2 or 3 companies? What are the 2 or 3 companies that are doing the most cutting edge development on this stuff? And can you find yourself in a place where you could work in one of those companies, get an internship or work there or get a job, because you will learn and glean information. You might not create the next Zoom yourself, but you might be part of the team that does, because the next Zoom is what will be Zoom 2.0. But tell me what we're going to need in 5 or 10 years, and maybe you'll be the person to invent that. So that's where I think you have to look at what you can reasonably do within your own environments and where you are in your life. But you can certainly be part of teams that are doing this. And of course, you have to look at the barriers to entry and what's reasonable for you to do, but also within the university setting and what you can work with professors on and how you can be part of some of the things that they're doing. Is that a good answer? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure. Other questions? Okay, so let's move on. All right. I love this part of it because what can you do? How can you get involved? Sometimes the solutions to the things that are the most important are in your own backyard. And how are you gathering information about trends, and what are you reading, and what are you listening to, and what exists in the ecosystem, and what needs to be improved, and what doesn't exist? So I would like you, and again, I'll ask you, Allison, can you all put into the chat, I want to know what trends you're following. I want to know what you're listening to and what you're reading. I want to know, how do you get your information? I want to know, who are your big influencers? Like, I listened to Bill Gates today talk about how he's trying to get the vaccine into the hands. I mean, we don't have it yet, but how he plans to get it into the hands of many people. And I thought it was compelling because he said, well, one company will come up with the vaccine, but my proposal is that it's licensed to a ton of companies because we need to have multiple producers of the vaccine. We can't expect one company to produce enough. They can't just hog it because we won't get it out fast enough. And I thought, that's brilliant, because he and his foundation and Melinda are financing the vaccines. I mean, they're really doing it. So thoughts. Okay. So how are you getting information? What are you doing? What are you reading? You can either talk or you can chat, and Allison will read stuff out and ask her.
Nothing yet.
Okay. Oh, I thought Oscar had his hand up.
Oh,
My fault.
Oscar?
Okay.
Or is that from
Okay.
before?
Oh, that could have been from before. Okay. All right. So what do we have? Oh, wow. Somebody put in an article, right? Is that what it is? Can you talk about that? It's an Indian suppliers chain about how they tackled the excessive milk problem. I love that. Okay, cool. All right, good. So what else are you all reading? Do you read Twitter? Do you read Facebook? Do you read articles? Do you read blogs? Do you listen to podcasts? Like, what do you do?
We have Jake does the news, Axios, NYT, WSJ podcasts.
Nice. I love those. Those are great. That's great. Go ahead. What's one or two things that you've recently keyed in on that you think are really important? That was Jake?
Yes.
Jake, give me a couple of things that you think are really like bothering and critical right now.
One of the things for me is I was talking with an old friend who's actually working in venture capital, and about how even if we get a vaccine, which odds are steep for that, but we think it's going to happen, it's not going to happen overnight, and probably going to be a recurring future for us where we have to new viruses. So he's thinking the mask just reduced viral load. So how can we figure out ways to just build in that reducing viral load into our everyday life once it goes back to normal?
Wow, that's so cool. So what were a couple of the suggestions? Like, what do you think?
Well, he's got an idea that I'm working on with him that's proprietary, but
okay, so we don't want you to tell us that, or else you'll have to kill all of us, and we get that. But I mean, overall, what are some of the ideas?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's tried stuff like HVAC and through the air, but not everything's going to be respiratory, although those tend to be the most difficult to deal with. So, what are cheap and ineffective ways that we use in the medical community or otherwise that have been used in one way, but we just haven't thought about applying it to other domains yet because we haven't had the need.
I love that. So my daughter has ulcerative colitis, and so when I was in the hospital with her a lot, she's older now, but they used to take this, you all probably know, this huge light. It's like a infrared light. And they would take it into the rooms after patients had been in the rooms, and it would kill all the bacteria. They are now putting that type of light in some HVAC systems in buildings where you can't circulate air enough to clean the air, because we know that cleaning the air and the aerosols from COVID is going to be critical. Also, I bought her something that's like a little box, and it has one of these infrared lights, and I think I need to find out exactly what that light is. So it's purple. And Alex, what is that light? And so what happens is she puts her keys and she puts her phone and her wallet and stuff that she's holding all the time that contains all these bacteria. She puts in there for like a minute and a half, and it kills all the bacteria. Like, I think that's amazing. Think about that. Okay, what other ideas? Oh, Jake, go ahead. No, please, Jake.
I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, yeah, I agree. That sounds great.
Yeah, what kind of light do you think that is? It's like one of the it's purple. It's like
No clue.
no clue. All right, who knows what that light is? Come on, somebody.
We have somebody in the chat said UV ultraviolet.
That's exactly what it is. Thank you very much. Right. Yes. Good. So what else can that UV ultraviolet light be applied to? I mean, you can't just be running it down the street, can you? No, but, you know, where can it be used? Like, I love that. Okay. What are other places are people getting information from? Just give me a couple more. I'm going to show you, as you're thinking about it, what I just found very easily and simply, which I think is going to be really important for you all to think about, because I think that you should every single day go to a different source, read something new. So I just realized, talk about your own backyard. This is one of the professors at CMU who is doing some work on analytics and resources in terms of finding and selecting this data. And what he's doing is clinical trials and trying to lower the cost of clinical trials through select drug disease pairs. And it's a whole new process. And he's doing it at CMU. So if this is something that you're really interested in, like, you could just email him and ask him, like, what is he doing and can you talk to him? Like, how great is that? That is totally great. And I don't know all the details involved, but that's pretty cool. Oh, look at this. This was September 11th, again, from Tepper. Infectious disease is one of the more undervalued specialties in medicine. Hospitals don't prepare for it. The PPE shortage and mechanical ventilators. I know some of you had talked about that already. So what do we do to prevent this from happening again? What has to be done now so that we could ramp up manufacturing and production? How can these systems be mainstreamed? I don't have the answers, but I know what the questions are. And if this has happened now, what are the chances that it will happen again? So the last big pandemic was 1916, 17, 18. There's a great book written about it. When I read pieces of this book, people were wearing masks. Okay, so we got to get this mask thing down. But are there different ways to produce masks? Yesterday, I listened to a lecture where a woman who is, she has a disability, and her disability is hearing. And she's also a woman of color. She said to me, I'm deathly afraid of being stopped by the police. I have 4 kids. And if my battery for my hearing aid goes bad and I can't see the faces of the police when they're talking to me because I need to read lips in addition to making sure my hearing aids are on, what's going to happen to me? Now, I've seen some masks that are like clear around here, but there's got to be a better system of masks. So what about other people with disabilities? Can they wear the mask? Can they breathe through masks? I don't necessarily have the answers, but I'm thinking about all the questions. And children in masks, like these kids, I mean, and here's the other thing. Half the people I see wearing masks don't have them over their noses. It is part of your respiratory system, your nose and your mouth, right? So that's another one. Okay, so here's another one. Your own backyard. Okay, who has seen these at Carnegie Mellon? Who's in Pittsburgh? Anybody? Just raise your hand if you've seen these. I haven't seen them on campus. I'm in Pittsburgh, but they are the tents. They're putting up tents. And here's a description of those tents. They're new places to pause on campus. Okay, there's 20 by 40 and then some smaller ones. There's no electricity. There's 20 folding chairs, blah, blah. Okay, what is wrong with this picture? What is wrong with these tents? And what do these tents not have that if you were going to design these tents, what would you give them? Take a sec to read it, and then you can chat. You can, just tell me by talking, or you can type it in. But what is missing from these places to pause on campus? This is sort of thinking entrepreneurially. What would you add to these? What would you change? Frida, what would you add to this? What do you think?
Probably electricity and heat to start with.
Okay, electricity and heat. What a concept, because heat, what are we going to do in the wintertime? Are we going to go inside with it? No, we're not. It makes no sense to devise all this stuff and not have heat. That's just crazy if you ask me. All right, what else do these need?
Like chairs and places to sit and things like that.
Yeah, I think it has some chairs. I can't quite figure. It looks like it has some chairs and a hand sanitizer or something. Something where it'll be cleaned every day. That's fine. That's fine. What else?
Not a necessity, would be helpful to have like a TV if you're holding a small meeting or something.
A what? Say it again. A screen?
Yeah, like a TV or something.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So what's the biggest problem with this disease? Right now, the biggest problem with this disease is as you get more people in a space, people don't adhere to the 6-foot rule. And now I'm reading more and more that it really should be 10 feet. So is there some way that there could be a system where you go in this tent and you have something that you clip onto your collar and, there's 10 of them or whatever they are. And that if you get closer than 8 feet to the next person, it dings. I don't know. What does that look like? You guys could invent that. Think about that. So that is like such a simple thing. And at the end, you hang them all up on a board. Is it like a little radio? Is it like I don't know. Or is it an app that everybody turns on once they get in the tent and they have it on their phone? Because who knows exactly what 6 feet is? And then you think, well, it's sort of 6 feet, but maybe it's 5.
I think I saw someone already developed that app, so if everyone has it open and accessible on Bluetooth, it'll start like making little pings for your phone, like Find My iPhone does.
Nice. Okay, so there you go. Like I'm thinking about something that might already exist, but don't you think this would be a good place for it? Because how many of you are going to go in there and go, nah. Oh, I didn't hear what you said, Frida. Can you get a little closer? I can't quite hear you. The wind is loud. Think about it. Yeah, exactly. In the pandemic in 1916, 17, 18, they actually taught classes outside in New York City. They had kids in schools outside in the cold, and they had like a 3-sided tent and a top with chalkboards. That's how they taught. So you're right about the screen, because maybe we just need to be outside for a while. I don't know. With climate change, maybe it's getting warmer. Okay, that's another idea. All right, so that's sort of that entrepreneurial thinking. There's some really cool stuff that I've included, and I know we're getting near the end, but a lot of universities are doing some great stuff. Hey, Allison, can I just click on this and you think it'll open and we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, it looks like it should open.
Okay, so let's do this one first. And these are some that I just did through just research. So AR will take the headache out of online shopping. I hate online shopping, but guess what? That's all I'm doing now because I'm not shopping. So artificial intelligence and clothing. Like, I know that I need certain things for the winter, but new developments in technology are constantly making our lives more convenient. But look at this, you guys. Print our medicine at home. Seriously? Seriously? People who are going to the pharmacy, I went to the pharmacy recently, like these really old people are going to the pharmacy. I mean, should there be something where they can not have to go? Like, to me, that feels like it's so dangerous. So as opposed to some of the things that we've used, are there ways that we can make these types of AR really applicable to life in COVID? You know, that to me is really important. So using AR to shop for clothes and shoes has boosted purchases by 250%. I mean, that's just incredible. So think about the applications now and think what could be done in the future, not what is happening now, but what could be done in the future. Okay, let's go back to Allison. How would I get back to that last link? What do you think?
I'm not sure. So when you clicked on the link, we can still just see your PowerPoint, not the actual where.
You can? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. All right, Allison, click on the link above it. Can you do that for me?
I cannot because it's just.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can get to it. If I close this, can you still see me, guys, or not? Have I lost you?
I can see you and the PowerPoint slide of endless
Okay.
possibilities.
Okay. All righty. So what I want to do on that one is let's let me open this up. Okay. Give me 1 second, you guys. I'm just looking to see if there's, yeah, I'm just not getting back to my PowerPoint. So some of the other ideas that were there were things that universities are doing, but what the universities are doing, and you all can click through some of these links later on, what the universities are doing are things that are thinking about what's going to happen in the future. And that's where I think all of you, as you're really making your way toward what you're going to do and how you're going to have an impact, is thinking about what things are going to look like in the future and how you'll make a difference in the future. And I think there's so many possibilities. It's so exciting. So if you were going to invent something today, tell me what it would be and how you would do it. Anybody have some thoughts about, like, they want to go out and do X? Like, that's how I want you to think. I want you to think, this is what's needed. This is what I'm going to do. This doesn't exist now, and I need to do it. Now, you might not be able to do it today or tomorrow, but at least you can get information and think about what it is that you want to try. And that's the kind of information that I wanted to really impart to you today, that sense of what's out there and why you need to really think entrepreneurially. I know we're right at time. So the rest of the PowerPoint, and you can go through it, really talks about what it what you need to do to think like an entrepreneur and what intrapreneurship means. And a lot of you might become intrapreneurs. You might say to yourself, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to spend the time or the money or take the risks. But I'm willing to think about intrapreneurship. And a lot of you are actually doing some of that now. But how will you make a difference? And how will you think entrepreneurially in whatever organization you're in, whether you're in a university, whether you're working, whether you're in an internship? Because now is the time we need the best minds and the brightest ideas and totally outlandish thinking, because what's happening now isn't acceptable, and too many people are dying and too many people are suffering. And so for all of you to think outside the box, for you to collaborate, for you to use the resources that you have, that you've been given, and the place that you're in to really have the opportunity to try to make a big change.